welcome everybody. I am going to call to order this meeting of the De Pere Sustainability Commission for Tuesday, January 14th of 2025. Betty, if you would please read the roll.
Finance personnel is up on the screen.
Oh, that's okay. Jamie, can you change the agenda to sustainability for us?
Oh.
Okay, roll. Alderperson Quigley.
Here.
Commissioner Black is excused. Commissioner Henry Gillis. Here. Commissioner Lawton.
Present.
Commissioner Slavin is excused. Commissioner Van Schindel.
Here.
Commissioner Weber.
Here.
Advisor Metzler. Wow.
Here.
And then also we're joined by Chase and Betty on the staff end of things. Next on the agenda, public comment on matters not on the agenda. I don't know, is there anyone on the meeting besides the commission members that we see here? So for the sake of argument, I'm going to say for the second time, are there any public comments? And for the third and final time, any public comment on matters not on the agenda? Hearing none, we will move ahead. The first action item is approval of the minutes from the November 12th of 24 Sustainability Commission meeting.
I move.
Do I have?
Yeah. I move to accept them as they are.
Okay, so that was Emily with the motion. Thank you. And a second from Commissioner Lawton. Thank you. Any discussion about those minutes from November? Any questions, any problems? All right. And then Betty, we want to do everything with a roll call vote. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so then we have a motion and a second. So let's go ahead with the roll call to approve the minutes from November, please.
Alderperson Quigley.
Aye.
Commissioner Henry Gillis.
Aye.
Commissioner Lawton.
Aye.
Commissioner Van Schindel.
Aye.
Commissioner Weber.
Aye.
And that motion carries. Thank you. Item number 2 is update on composting reimbursement programs.
Yes, our private partnership with Greener Bay Compost has come to an end starting January 1st, 2025. At the end of the year, our subscriber count dropped to 62 total subscribers, and the city's participation fell to $768 for that month. In total, the city diverted 6.5 tons of food from the landfill over the course of the 8 months of 2024. In total, this saved the city $347 in what would be tipping fees for taking garbage had this food gone into the garbage instead of being composted through Greener Bay Compost. For that same 8-month duration, we did spend just short of $6,000 in subscription fees, reimbursing homeowners on half their subscription fees through Greener Bay Compost. Looking forward into 2025, our partnership directly to Greener Bay Compost has come to an end, and now we're partnering with the residents themselves. When I drafted this memo, we had 23 residents who were already pre-subscribed or had emailed me with their interest for participating in the composting program moving forward. Since then, a few more have reached out. In total, we're maybe at $8,000, $9,000 of our budget still remaining. Had the whole year have passed by and just those residents are the participants. We'll wait to see when April comes how the invoices roll in, but I'm not getting a lot of response in January with those invoices so far. So our budget sits in a decent spot. So I'm not seeing as much participation, and I anticipate participation probably will continue to drop now that homeowners are kind of doing the legwork on this program, getting me the invoices and then waiting for reimbursement on the back end. But yeah, that kind of summarized where we sit right now. I don't see an issue moving forward with our budgets. We're going to work to carry over budget from this year to help meet any needs should we need the extra money at the year end. But we're in a good spot right now, and we'll monitor as the year goes on.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anybody on the commission or anybody that's here have questions or comments about the food scraps, the food composting program?
I just have one minor comment about the memo. it's not really a concern for me. I just remember when initial conversations happened before the agreement, they wanted to be clear that we weren't subsidizing, and there's just some verbiage in there using that. It doesn't matter to me. I just thought I'd point it out because I remember that being a sticking point.
It was a sticking point with Greener Bay Compost, but we're working directly with residents, so I'm not too concerned anymore.
Okay.
And then, am I safe to assume any commission member that's using their services, I can carry forward your subscription fees through the year? Because I only have heard back from one of you so far.
Yeah, I just made a note to myself to email you, but yes, I will continue with the
Okay.
program.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, did we do anything else to notify residents if clearly the majority are not responding to the letter?
In March, I plan to email again. Those who I have heard from, if the commission wants, we can send another letter out. The only correspondence, means of correspondence I have at this point are mailing address. Those who have reached out, I do have email I can reach out to. So it'd just be another mailer we'd have to send out.
We can plan on posting on social media as well in March, leading up to that quarter and just saying, or early April, or whatever it ends up being, after the March billing to send a reminder to anybody participating in the program to send in copies of invoices.
And on the homeowner side of things, every invoice does have my contact info, and Greener Bay Compost is telling people to get in touch with me to pre-register. And then they are also advertising on their social media to get people to get in contact with me as well.
Awesome. Do we know why, like in July we had 67 and then in December we had 62? Do we know why? I mean, it's only 5, dropping. Do we have any insight into why?
It's more dropping and some gaining. December was just a straight drop of 3 people. In December, I think it was because my letters went out that people are going to have to lead the program on their own. July was a result of the prices going up, and that's when he raised his fees about 20%. So we lost a few people there. But throughout the year, just we had the big spike, and then we kind of held as the year went, just kind of picking up a few, dropping a few more. But based on the feedback I'm getting right now, I'm not too excited where we're heading. But we'll see how it fits in April.
Will this
Thank
be
you.
added back to April's agenda?
Yeah, every quarter I'll bring back an update. It may be May, to be honest, depending on, so I'll have to do all my reimbursements in April. So I might bring it in May after the reimbursements are done and have a better picture of what happened.
I plan on mailing 3 invoices to you every quarter. I hope you know that.
Why would you waste the stamp?
Yeah, you can email them to me.
Because I want you guys to receive some mail.
We get plenty, we're okay. I'll even take a picture and a text if you want, that's fine.
Or we have that wonderful online reimbursement form that I created.
Any other questions or comments about the composting program? All right, thank you for that, Chase. Moving on, next one is to discuss plan for addressing the alignment of the De Pere Sustainability Commission's activities with its ordinance.
This one I will defer to Commissioner Van Schindel. She had recently met with a member of the Green Bay Sustainability Commission, and they discussed how they're aligning their priorities against their ordinance. So Commissioner Van Schindel drafted a kind of an outline of how we can look at our priorities, and then I copied our ordinance too into this memo, so we can see how what we're doing is aligning with what the municipal code has for the city of De Pere. But Carmen, if you want to take over.
Yeah, so a lot of this is just me learning as I go along. I've never done this before and didn't really know the whole process of how we kind of assess, what we say yes to, what we say no to, how we allocate budget. As we previously discussed in the earlier meeting, I connected with a member of the Green Bay Sustainability Commission at the Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council conference in November. And then we reconnected and were able to just have some really great conversations about what Green Bay is doing and kind of the process that they are working on right now to make sure that they're able to make the biggest impact as a commission, knowing that, staff is short isn't the right word, but staff is limited to do things related to sustainability, and all the commissioners have lives outside of what they do on the commission. So kind of setting some guidelines around how they evaluate what they work on, how much they put into it, who works on it. So just kind of pulled together some thoughts from what she was suggesting based on the process they went through to really align to essentially the reasoning why the commission was created in the first place. So I had not seen, what's the right way to say it, the municipal code. I had not seen that before, so wasn't really clear on exactly what we were supposed to be doing as a commission. So created kind of a draft plan, and then really just looking for conversation and feedback on, hey, does anybody else want to do some of this work to make sure that we're all working towards the same thing aligned with the municipal code.
I'll give my 2 cents that sometimes I'm not always well versed on what ordinances are and where their place is. And this kind of, so I don't know if anyone can give just let's start there and say like what an ordinance's authority is.
I have the
Chase,
same
do you want
questions.
to do that one, or I
That's
have?
between you or us, John.
Say that one more time.
Yeah, between you and I, which one of us
Okay.
want to tackle that one? So an ordinance is an act that the Common Council has approved and passed. It essentially sets the policy for the city as a whole and our residents to follow. When an ordinance is adopted, municipal code is then updated to reflect that change in ordinance. So the municipal code is the stack of rules, or the in other communities they are called ordinances, but it's the written code that our residents and staff need to follow. An ordinance is what the Common Council passes to enact a new municipal code, is my understanding of it.
Okay, because yeah, that was confusing me. Like, what's a code? What's the difference? Okay, cool.
They're very similar, one and kind of the same.
Yeah, and I think you've captured it well. I guess in my mind, the distinction is an ordinance can be a little bit broader. So we can have an ordinance that says we want to declare it's Stormwater Awareness Week, or the council wants to do XYZ. Sometimes they're aspirational. Sometimes it's just making a statement. But if the ordinance is something that's an activity, or it's something that has to be either enforced, or somebody from the city staff is going to take action based on a very specific thing.
Would you say that there are some? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Are they sometimes temporary? Like, would an ordinance be something that is just like a temporary change?
I would say you're more leaning toward a resolution at that point, something that would be more temporary, even more broad at that point. So there's just different little brush strokes of governance that we have, but ordinance is more of a permanent guidance to have staff then update the municipal code to make it an official law.
Okay.
I wasn't clear on a lot of this either, which is where a lot of questions came from, which is where Krista from the Green Bay Commission pointed me to I think it was their municipal code that she pointed me to, but that essentially says like, hey, this is why the Sustainability Commission was created, and here's by design what it's supposed to do. So Chase attached that in here, and under the powers and duties section, I think are some of the things that I was looking at. So like make recommendations to the mayor and the Common Council with regard to federal and state policies, budgets, and regulations, stuff like that. So like, we're doing a lot of sustainability focused things. I just don't know how to evaluate, like, are we making an impact? Are we doing what this code tells us to, how to evaluate the projects and ideas that we have to make sure it's aligned with what we were designed to be doing. if that makes sense. So she said the draft plan that I have, and literally this was just me kind of throwing things in a document as they came in my head. Like she said, they create, some matrices to evaluate, does this align with the municipal code? Do we have the right people to do this? Do we have a budget for it? Kind of creating some parameters to evaluate different projects or ideas against each other to see how they rank, to make sure that if we're going to be putting initiative into something, we're able to make the biggest impact that we can.
Yeah, I think this is an important conversation because, having the commission created is one thing, but then how effective is the work that we're doing? And I think at certain intervals, we need to go back and ask ourselves, are we still staying with our mission? Are we accomplishing the things that we want to? The other thing I would address is that over the past 2 or maybe 3 years, there's been some turnover on this Sustainability Commission. And I think people get frustrated that they come to the commission and they have a lot of ideas and they want to see big changes. And then sometimes it moves slower or in smaller increments than maybe people are comfortable with. So this tool might be a good way to address that and say, here's what we're working on and here's how we have set these priorities. And like I said, we can go back and revisit them at different intervals and see how we're doing.
That's my thought process too. And I've never done this before, so I don't kind of know the right way to approach it. But just really putting some organization around it, like you said, to make sure that everybody has a way to make sure we're all aligned on what we're working on, make sure we're making progress on it, and even to be able to come back to some activities and say, hey, this isn't meeting what we originally wanted it to. Here's the reasons why we're going to scrap it. And, it gives us kind of the reasons or the data behind it that we need to make some of those decisions. Or are we missing a big area that we could be doing more work in that is a gap because it's outlined, in the, I keep forgetting what it's called, the municipal code.
The ordinance that created the Sustainability Commission? Yeah.
Yeah, is there a big gap that we're not addressing right now with the activities that we're doing that we could put more focus on and pull back from something else? I don't know the answers. I probably have more questions than answers, but
they're good questions. I think Randall, go ahead, sir.
When I look at my history on the commission and the role of the commission, and I remember studying those purpose and defined powers back 3 years ago, I think it was. It's quite important that we have a plan of expanding our knowledge about what sustainability can be in a community, and are we learning from other communities who are doing things that are successful? And just you talking to Green Bay is one of those kind of steps. And we take knowledge in, we read about things, we study it, we compare it ourselves, we try this, we try that, because one of the things we do is we have resources, but they're limited. They're our time, really, and the city does give us a small budget to work with to do things, and we're trying to optimize what impact we have on the sustainability of the city of De Pere, and how much leverage we can get out of those hours and those dollars. And we're trying to set up a system. I think you're doing this to help us evaluate that. In the matrices, one thing that I think you could add to that would be the probability of success or outcome. There's nothing in there as you laid it out. And when we do our future and foresight work at Envision, one of our key matrices is probability of success and how much impact. And if you balance those two things, if you've got high impact but low probability of success, you give that one level of seriousness. But especially when you get high impact, high level of success, then you look at that much more seriously. You give it more time to study it and things like that. But that discussion of the knowledge base of what this group is, I haven't thought about how to do that. We need to keep working on that, because we're trying to prepare the city for the future of a sustainability lifestyle that's different than our past. And if most of us don't want to address that because it kind of conflicts with our past living standards and how we do things in our world, how we grew up. But I think most of us understand that that has to happen. So we're there to help guide the city in a serious way to do that. And that's, I think, part of our role. So how we get that done is another story. The state has some real priorities that we've been through in the past. Some of the newer members probably haven't seen it, but there are some things that the DNR, I think it was, or there was a commission sustainability group in the state that has given us a lot of possibility priorities that they're doing, that people, sustainability and commissions and cities are doing all over the state. And that we maybe revisit that also. That was part of our plan, right? Our, what do we call it? Our clean, the
Clean
plan
energy.
that we have as a commission. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had some questions around like the difference between a work plan and the clean energy plan. And when I was talking to Green Bay, she was saying essentially they created a work plan first that really outlined the work that the commission was going to do that aligns with the ordinance. And then from that work plan, one of the focuses was energy, and then they created the energy work plan. So I know that some of that exists for De Pere. I just wasn't really clear on what currently existed, what didn't, and kind of what we're following and checking back in on. But Randall, that's exactly it. I think, there's a lot of knowledge, and how do we make sure we're using that to the best ability and we're making decisions with the most information that we have.
Go ahead,
Randall,
Chase.
When you're looking at the probability of success, is there a metric on that, or is that a subjective?
No, I think that's what we've used in our foresight work is it's a qualitative analysis of the probability of success of something happening, because it's you don't engineer it to the point that you know what's going to happen. You're just looking at this. It would be like the early stage of looking at our the clean air initiative that we're doing around the schools. And you say, okay, is that can that really be successful? Do we have a mental model of how we can make that successful? And if we do, as a group, because in general, groups that build consensus around these things, they can go and do things, and they're pretty comfortable with it. But if there's 3 or 4 of the commission members that are saying, I don't think that's a very good use of our time, we're not going to get very far with that, how the heck are we going to do this and this? Maybe you just let that one go and move on to something that you have a higher success factor. And that one we've moved along nicely.
So kind of creating a decision matrix, including all of those factors, right? Some objective, some subjective.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have experts in different areas, and then almost a collective group.
And then would you say weighting it, like having the, a matrix that's weighted?
Mm-hmm. I think in most cases that usually works, and some that doesn't. I know there's so many different like templates that you can use, where you can kind of use the right one for the right scenario, right? So sometimes you want to weight the different things that you're ranking on, right? Probability of success being one, time to impact, things like that. And sometimes you don't want to rank them. I can't think of what I've used in the past.
Oh no, the scenario methodology, I think, would have very good appropriateness for what we're doing. The future rollout of sustainability in the community under different scenarios. That would be pretty appropriate, I think.
Do we have a work plan for the commission that's built off of not the ordinance, what's it called? The municipal code?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
work
code or the
plans.
ordinance, to me, I use those overlapping. I don't think there's a work plan exactly. The ordinance kind of sets out who's on the commission and how frequently we meet, but it's besides those couple of bullet points that says we can make recommendations to the mayor or the council, and we can do, there's kind of a limited number of powers, but as far as I know, there's no broader work plan. I sort of think that we have evolved to this system where we have the subgroups and we have kind of some constant items on the agenda that we keep coming back to again and again. And that's sort of been our way in the past year of how do we approach these complex plans and how do we keep moving them forward. But I think this is a good conversation to have. Like I said, at intervals, I think we should just take a step backwards and say, where are we putting our time and energy, and are we getting the return on our investment that we wanted, or do we reassess?
Yeah, I think now is a good time because there's so many, there's new people, and we're all taking over things that were approved by previous commissions. And then, so you're coming into it with your own idea of what the purpose is. Yeah, so almost, I'm looking through your outline, and I like the steps of one, reviewing the code and really understanding why we were created, and then evaluating each activity against that after creating the matrix. But I wonder what is the best way to implement something like this? Because we only meet so often. And then I also this is one of those activities that everyone should have consensus about. And so you almost don't want to create a subgroup to discuss these things. So is the next step to almost create an idea of how are we literally going to do step one, do step two,
I think that doing step one, doing step two, doing step three then leads to creation of a work plan. And then from that work plan is how we are able to then create additional initiatives that we want to work on as they're aligned to the work plan. I think. Chase, am I way off on how that's organized?
To jump in, when I just started on this last year, I created an item, I want to say in March, just to discuss high priorities as a commission, just because I was new to this and I didn't exactly know who was working on what and what our goals were moving forward. Maybe that's something we do on an annual basis, or even biannually, twice a year. We bring forward our priorities to evaluate as a group, to make sure we're all moving in the same lockstep, and then we can update that work plan at that time. And that's something I could prepare again for this upcoming March, just to reevaluate our priorities. Maybe we draft up this work plan like you had outlined here and build from there and just keep it a living document as we move forward.
I think that's what it has to be, because we'll all give input and think of more ideas or things to scrap kind of as we go. I almost think just a working draft is the best way to approach it for now.
I was kind of thinking taking a meeting to go through the code. Like, this is how I would envision doing step one, is we go through the code and the items that you have identified, like highlight key section, discuss roles and responsibilities, and create a vision reference. And after that meeting, we have come up with a matrix for assessing. And then maybe next meeting is we go through one or two agenda items and evaluate it against that matrix. And in the end, come up with I guess like the pollinators are such great momentum. And I could see how then it could get tied to the goals in our code to get even more momentum. Okay, so that's, yeah.
I think that's a great suggestion.
The
Take a meeting
state-
to really Go ahead. Sorry.
The state there's a score sheet for community, sustainability strategy score sheet that we used to use years ago. We haven't, John, do you remember when the last time we might have looked at this 2-3
No.
years ago?
It might have been before my time.
I don't want to think that I noticed that I'm going back to 2019 or 20. So, but I applaud the effort to do exactly what you're talking about. We need to do this. We need to have that better sense of where we're spending our time, and it's the right way to spend it.
So what about this for the next meeting that we have? If we can plan to go through the municipal code and just kind of create that sort of evaluation matrix or template or whatever we want to call it. But then just generally, if there's any other thoughts that people have to kind of add to this on how to approach it, maybe we just bring it to that next meeting. And Randall, like you said, if there's a past version that we've used, maybe if you're able to dig that up and share it, or Chase and Betty, if you have access to that, just kind of knowledge share to get the brainstorming going and then come prepared to talk on the next one. And we have time, I believe, because I don't think we're meeting for a little bit.
Yeah,
Correct.
in March. And then to clarify, I think we just focus on section E of the municipal code, just the powers and duties. Everything above that just defines our roles and how we're all elected and our purpose. But I think section E, to make recommendations to the mayor, the
Yep.
consult private office, that'd be all the heavy lifting of this thing.
Yep. Agree.
Did you receive any work plans from the city of Green Bay and your conversations with them?
I did. She sent it over to me after I had already sent this over to Chase.
Okay.
So I will send it over, and looks like I started a draft email and never sent it. I will send it over, and maybe we can include it in the minutes if that works.
I have a piece of a 2019 work plan from them that I did in an interview when I first joined the commission, because I had a friend that was on their commission, and he shared some of it with me, and I probably took it back to the people that were managing this commission at the time, but I don't see anything. But I do find my score sheet for the community information here, so I'll pass that along.
Yeah, they just went through revising theirs for 2024, 2025. So theirs is fresh. And then she sent me their latest agenda and then their ordinance that was signed in 2018. So I will forward it off to Chase and Betty, and if you could include it in the notes, that'd be great, so everybody gets access to it.
We'll forward
really
it along to the group. It won't be in the minutes.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
Whatever we need to do. It's really cool how it's laid out. I think it gives some really good organization to kind of how they're approaching each of their initiatives. And then you can really see how it ties into the ordinance on like why the commission was created and what they're supposed to do. So this might help just kind of organize all the thoughts that we have.
Okay, great. Carmen, do you know how often do they go back to the Green Bay? Do they sort of evaluate these items?
She made it sound like they do it at every meeting. So as they talk about an initiative, so all of their subgroups are aligned to the different initiatives that are aligned to the work plan. And they give updates at every single meeting, and then they revisit like, hey, are we aligned to our goals still? How are we on timeline? That they kind of check all those boxes on how they originally evaluated the feasibility of the initiative in the first place.
Very good.
I'll
yeah,
check if they have any sort of templates or matrices on how they evaluate. If they could share, that might be helpful as well.
Okay. And I'll go through some of our old meeting minutes. I think the only way to get up to speed on what's been going on in De Pere is you kind of got to go back and read the minutes from each individual meeting, which can be a little tedious. But I'll see if I can find some things in there to flesh out what you've already started with your document. Chase, do you have enough stuff? Can we make this an agenda item for the next meeting, for the March meeting?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything to this? And again, thank you, Carmen, and thanks to everybody that had comments today. I like it, moving things ahead, which is good.
I have just one question is, do we think that in the end of this, we're going to kind of like evaluate all the current initiatives? Could some like end up dropping off, or like, do we have that authority to change something that was already approved?
We can't change the language from the ordinance or from the original, the resolution that created this. But I think within our power is we're setting the agenda items and what are our priorities, what are the priorities that we want to communicate to the city and to the Common Council. So there's room to edit, I believe, yes.
Okay.
And the council is nudgeable, if that's a word. We had no budget. I can't remember, it was 2 or 3 years ago, and we had a couple conversations with council members, et cetera, and said, we've got this group of people and their hands are tied. They can't do anything. And we all kind of agreed that we needed some, not great amount of money, but some money to do things with. And the Common Council listened to us and made a change. Yep.
Very good. All right. Anything else before I move to the next agenda item? We're doing good. Okay. Item 4 is discuss clean air initiative updates.
So the intent of this item is, sorry, I was checking if I was muted. Intent of this item is to discuss clean air initiative and any progress that the commissioners would have. On staff's end of things, we've attached some information about outreach and education for clean air, and maybe like banners or promotional items we could include for this. On my end of things, I'm kind of at a dead end with the school districts. I'm not getting much feedback or conversation with them and carbon monoxide detectors or air detection. So I don't know if that's something we're going to want to continue putting our efforts towards at this point, especially with this new option out there for other ways of outreach and education. So with that, I'll probably kick it over to Betty now to go through what she's included first, and then we can go to the commissioners for discussion.
So one thing that I had brought up to Chase, we were talking at one of the last meetings, if not the last meeting, different ways to get the word out that aren't the schools, at grocery stores, at the parks, having the health department post on their social media. And one thing that popped into my brain on a Saturday midday is over Reed Street, they have the banner there. And anybody can request or purchase a banner and request to have it installed. As a city commission, we would not be charged to have that installed. We would need to obviously purchase the banner. So I did put pricing in the memo regarding that. To stay local, it does increase the cost considerably. The health department does use, I think it was signs.com or cheap signs or something. And that would be around $500, which would still fall in a budget that we have available to us. Some of the other promotional items, I've only reached out to the one company. There's tons of different options for places you can get promotional items made, but I was primarily looking at those for items we can hand out, like at farmers market, if we would continue that this year, that we could just have pens or something that people have a tangible that would have maybe the slogan on it or something that they're seeing then on a regular basis. So I reached out to Keen Printing and I said, hey, we'd be looking at things that are sustainably produced. And so that's kind of what she gave us in that presentation.
Flipping through these, I like that keychain one, because then people put it on their keys and then drive their car. Thank you, Betty.
this doesn't all have to be tied clean air. It can go any initiative we have to, especially the banner. Stormwater adopt a drain, I think would be a really good fit for this too. Especially come September time, if there's a slot. One of those catchy slogans that we have, take it from the hip or something like that.
Oh my God, my big smiling face on a big banner.
Yeah, Chase is right. It doesn't have to be just for clean air. It can be towards any initiative for having promotional materials. We could even, based on what we present as a topic each month, we could have a promotional item for that particular thing. So it's very versatile. It does not have to be tied just to this initiative.
I think unless we have a specific reason for the promotional items, like I just don't see a ton of value in spending money on it. You know, I mean, like honestly, I think a lot of these things, even if they're sustainably produced, like they just end up in a landfill after a certain amount of time because people don't use it. They throw it somewhere unless it's something that they're actually going to use and dispose of properly. But the banner idea, I do like. I think if there's a specific, you know, thing like the adopt a drain, I think is a great idea. Everybody sees that. If there's a bigger message we want to get out, or you know, something else, or even to compost, whatever we have going on that we want to make sure the community knows about, I think that's a great way to do it. What is the budget that we have for this specifically, or was it for the clean air?
So for air detectors, I guess it started out with the wildfire smoke, and then it kind of morphed into the carbon monoxide detectors. In 2024, we had a $1,500 budget with another $10,000 budget for sustainable initiatives. That could be kind of broad stroke, whatever we could get off the ground and running. That same budget's been carried over into 2025. So we have another $1,500 for air monitors and another $10,000 for sustainable initiatives. We are requesting to carry over some budgets of the air monitors. I think the full $1,500 because we never spent it. So we might have $3,000 there. And then of the sustainable initiatives, we might have almost $20,000. We did spend some of that money. Of that sustainable initiative money, some of that is slotted to one of our items on today's agenda for the pollinator gardens. We do want to go through an RFP process. Depending how the money falls, we might look at doing 1 to maybe all 4 parks and getting pollinators gardens installed this year. But that'll just depend on the consultant pricing received when we send out that request for proposals later this year. And objectively, we're probably looking at a summer proposal and a fall, late summer construction on those, but it'll depend on staff's time. And with the baby right now and our current construction demands, getting projects up to bid, we're a little tight over here.
I like the idea of us as a commission doing our marketing and trying to get a voice and get a message out into the community. I think that we're kind of stuck because if we're waiting on the school districts to do something for us regarding clean air, we can't wait too long. We need to sort of go in our own direction and find ways to do it. Does anybody have suggestions? I know there were a lot of things in the previous meeting about maybe we could do this with clean air. Maybe we should reach out to these people. Are we just going to kind of put that on pause for now, or do we need to have more discussion about how to get people in the school districts kind of aware of our requests for clean air initiatives? Chase, is that a hand up in the air? Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think this would be a good one to wait for March when we kind of go through the matrix. Janie's been the big torchbearer for this item probably since its conception. I'd hate to have this discussion without her present. And then let's see if we can get the group in a consensus on a whole on where we should go moving forward. Because right now I think we're spreading out staff on my end of things. I don't know what to do really anymore on this. So I think it'd be great to have her, especially. I think she's the pounding, beating heart for this item.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Thank you for reminding me of that. Good.
One of the things discussed at the last meeting was, at least I remember, is trying to go to a PTO meeting. So it's, I didn't forget about doing that. It's still something that I would like to try and be able to report back at the next meeting. I think today was the next PTO meeting that I would have been available, but
The
so
Dickens one goes over this time.
the Dickens, yep, that's the one. Okay. So yeah, I'm not going to give up on that. I want to be able to have at least that data point for the next meeting.
Sure. And again, anybody as individuals, if you want to do something, that's fine. But I like the idea of waiting until March, and we'll get Janie back in and have that kind of conversation about the matrix and the values of all the different programs that we're looking at and thinking about. Good. All right. Anything else before we go on to the next item? Number 5 is the Clean Energy Work Plan updates.
Yeah, this is again just an opportunity for the commission to discuss the Clean Energy Work Plan and any updates that have occurred in the last 2 months. On the staff side of things, no real progress. Green Tier Legacy Communities, we meet quarterly. We weren't able to meet on the last quarter's meeting, and then I'm on paternity leave for the next meeting, so I'm not going to hear from the state maybe until summertime. But leave it up to the commissioners at this point.
I don't have anything.
No, I think our discussions today are kind of potentially might inform this on how we proceed maybe.
I'm okay with that too. Okay, maybe moving ahead. Item number 6 is discuss how the City of De Pere Sustainability Commission can support green initiatives during the 2025 NFL Draft.
This item originated from Commissioner Black. I know she's not here tonight to help speak on it. I still think there is merit in discussing it tonight, especially the City of De Pere stance with the NFL Draft itself. One thing, Janie had sent us kind of an outline from the Green Bay Sustainability Commission on their recommendation for city-sponsored events during the NFL Draft Week and how they can help promote sustainability at that time. From a City of De Pere standpoint, we are completely separate from the NFL Draft. It's the Green Bay Packers within the City of Green Bay. And then the draft itself is really ran by the National Football League. The Packers themselves, they do have some input and some say, but the show is ran from the corporate office from that league. The city itself is then taking direction from the league on what they need to do to help support this event. We're in the meetings for the draft because they do need our assistance with providing like barricades and maybe police force to help maintain and run the event smoothly. But as far as the City of De Pere as an entity goes, we're completely separate, and we're actually promoting ourselves as being open during this time. On the public works side of things, we're one of the few communities in the municipality or the Green Bay metropolitan area that's open for construction. For example, companies like Wisconsin Public Service and Charter, they're not able to do any work in the City of Green Bay until the draft is over to prevent any disruption and any unforeseen hiccups on their side of things. So we're inviting them then to come to City of De Pere to get work started here, so maybe our season can start sooner and get completed a little quicker because we are now open. We're Ashwaubenon, Green Bay, and those surrounding communities aren't letting this work take place. As far as city-sponsored events during NFL Draft Week, I'm not terribly versed on any the City of De Pere would have that the commission could tie onto. I don't know if we'd want to partner with the City of Green Bay. I don't necessarily recommend it at this point, as it is really the Green Bay Packers and a City of Green Bay thing. It's not, nobody's going to really recognize the City of De Pere during the NFL Draft, especially those coming from out of town. But in her memo here, she had energy and power. We're looking to use renewable resources such as solar or wind power for stages, lighting, and other equipment. Food and trucks, they want to have a reduced carbon footprint where people are using recyclable packaging and utensils. Waste management, they want to have 90% of whatever is refuse from these events to be kept out of landfills. Recycling education as part of these goals. They want zero waste goals implemented. Transportation, they want people biking, walking, carpooling to public events. Water conservation, they want water stations that are refillable systems rather than single-use bottles. Green certificate partners.
Who is they? This is
So
Green
this
Bay?
is the Bay Sustainability Commission's goals for city-sponsored events.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, sorry. And then communication, they just want to publicize the city's commitment to sustainability at these events. So I know that I wish I could have attached this for the group as part of the agenda, but I don't know. I wish Janie was here to speak her mind on this. I'm not the biggest fan of sponsoring things tied to the NFL draft, especially with it being tied more to another community as a whole. But I'm definitely open to the commission's guidance.
My first thought when I saw this on the agenda was if there's going to be a public event, like you were talking about, if there's food service trying to help, with composting or reducing landfill, maybe the thing we can do is me as an individual just say, hey, I would volunteer to help at one of the events for Green Bay's Sustainability Commission. So I'm not organizing it. I'm not making decisions about whatever, but if they just need bodies to staff some of these kinds of things, I'll empty garbage cans or help to hand out water, whatever it might be. I'm just throwing that out there. Easy decision for us, and then everybody here can make their own decision about how you want to do it. Any other thoughts or ideas or suggestions?
This isn't related to, I think, what Commissioner Black, her intent was, but if there's a opportunity for us to do a booth or something, if there is an event, maybe. I'm just interested, and this is maybe not the best topic for this, but how the Green Bay Commission, how they have all these ideas. I wonder what is the likelihood of them being implemented because you have the NFL involved? I wonder if does then the city say we agree and communicate that to NFL? I don't know.
They're going to the county or something to request some of this. I was just talking to someone who runs a nonprofit who's asking for some things to be done during the draft as well, and she was having to go to the county to ask for funding. She needed the funding to get anything through with the NFL and the city. And it sounds like nobody knows who to go to get a lot of the answers for a lot of this stuff. So I think Green Bay's approach is to try to create some guidelines. And if some of them stick, then it's more sustainable than it would have been without it, I think.
And these guidelines, they're not tied to NFL draft events. These are tied to City of Green Bay events that are being held at the same time as the NFL draft. The draft itself, it's very tight-lipped. Us communities, we only know what we need to know. They're not giving us a big paintbrush to paint with here. We're very much in the dark unless they need something done from us at that time. City of De Pere especially so, because we're not terribly tied to this event in a whole.
So if there's a business near Lambeau and they're hosting a draft party, whatever, right? They're hosting an event, this guideline is to hopefully influence what they're doing with their event. I
don't even think that's the case. I think it's if the City of Green Bay is hosting events. So Stadium View, this would have no bearing on what they do at all unless they're really into the Green Bay Sustainability Commission and want to follow these guidelines. I don't think this is passing as an ordinance or a resolution by any means.
No.
This is just guidance if the city were to have a draft sustainability farmers market or something that same day, we would then use these guidelines for that event.
What's the likelihood of the city doing something at the same time as the draft when they're?
I don't know, and this is very much so the 11th hour too. I know the draft is in April, and it seems like it's pretty far away. But from the league standpoint, this thing is pretty much set in stone. I want to say at this point, where to have a booth all of a sudden near the stage or anywhere near Lambeau is going to be almost impossible, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm just almost wondering, are there things going on within our community in that time frame because people know there's going to be an influx of people that we can just help support, right? So I'm making this up because I don't know, but maybe there's a walk down a road or a certain shopping experience or something that, hey, can we pick up litter? Can we whatever? Just ways that to support things that are already happening, and they're happening because of the draft and the influx of people. I have no clue what's planned. I don't know. I get the intent because if there's something going on,
Nothing to worry
do
about
something around it. But
Yeah, and to kind of build upon what Randall had earlier, I think the probability of success for this is rather slim at this point. We're not meeting again until March, so to have an actual actionable plan in place for an April draft is going to be fairly unlikely. So I don't know if putting a lot of commission time toward this would be the best.
With 200 and whatever it's going to be, 300, 400,000 people, almost all of them from outside the area. What's the dog that we have in this fight? How are we going to have a branding opportunity for the good of the city of De Pere and its sustainability commission? I don't see it, but maybe someone else does, and I'd love to hear about it.
I don't see it either when you're going up against the NFL.
Yeah, I'm okay if we keep moving ahead. Yep. I guess my personal take on it, I've never been really involved in draft weekend, but to me, it's going to be like a Packer game day times 10, which means there's going to be a lot of partying. There's going to be a lot of waste. And personally, it bothers me, but I don't know as a commission or as a city of De Pere, I don't know what we can do to shape those those events. So let's keep moving with our very full agenda, if that's okay with everybody. We good?
Yep.
Right. Our professional sports teams are not very sustainable from the standpoint of a lifestyle.
All right, let's keep going then. Item 7 is update on Pollinator Gardens at the De Pere Parks.
Well, good news on this. I attended a November Board of Park Commissioners meeting to talk about our pollinator gardens. We had originally approval from the Urban Orchard Committee of the city for pursuing pollinator gardens at our urban orchards. We discussed it again at the Board of Park Commissioners, and they were unanimously on board with us continuing pursuit. The next step for this would be to draft up an RFP, like I described earlier, go out for proposals with certain, I'm going to just call them firms at this point, who would design and then construct these pollinator gardens with the intent that they continue to then maintain these gardens for a year-long duration there afterwards. So the staff will then take on the drafting of this RFP. We'll bring it back to the commission for review and approval prior to sending it out to the firms that are selected. I would recommend that the commission bring up any firms they're interested in pursuing or sending this out to. City policy is typically 3 we like to hit, just to keep it local and maybe just a little more concise. But yeah, that's where we stand on pollinator gardens, and it looks like we have some real actionable progress at this point.
I put in a pollinator garden, a 10 by 20 foot pollinator garden next to my home last summer, and I was too late for planting some of the things that you'd want to plant. So earlier would be better, but I've got most of the things in, and I'll put a few new ones in this spring, in late April and early May that were relevant. Most of it's perennial. I'm not sure how well the plants are going to do with animals that be chewing on them, like rabbits or deer, depending on the location of these 4 or 5 sites that you had. But it's an ambitious, wonderful opportunity to let people understand. One of the things we could make sure it gets done is the labeling of what's there and why it's there, how the various pollinator insects are going to benefit from it.
Okay. Does anybody have questions for Chase about the gardens, the process going forward? I'm excited to hear about it. I think it's a great thing.
Do you need anything from the commission to like recommendations before the RFP, like what species because they'll develop their own seed mixes, right? Or is this something that we want to dictate?
I am not well versed enough in seed mixes or plants in general to dictate to them. If the commission has opinions, I'm definitely open to them, and I'm looking at one member in particular who is very well versed in these. But yeah, I think I would leave it more open to the firms to make that selection on their own. Maybe we give them a allotted budget to then create the said pollinator garden, just so we tie it down and one firm just doesn't go crazy and make a $20,000 garden at one park, and we can't afford to do this. So we got to have some sort of metric to keep them all relatively quantitatively evaluatable, where we're comparing apples to apples per se.
But then the idea is that we're going to help the pollinators because of their interaction with the urban orchard, right? I mean, they're going to have to pick species that are going to give us the outcomes that we're looking for. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
I would say trust the professionals.
I have some records on this. One of the things I chose were plants that deer wouldn't eat specifically. And there are species of pollinators that they don't eat, but then you want to say, well, I want to make sure that I've got the right kind of bees for the trees fruit trees that we have. And there's just a few different thinking processes you have to go through before you finally say, okay, these are the ones that we'll put in here.
And so maybe by the end of February, if the commissioners, if you have any recommendations, want to email them to me. Maybe we work towards March having an RFP possibly available for the commission to review, and then maybe second or final approval on April before we go out for proposals. Give or take a month and how my workload goes.
Okay.
Sounds like a good idea.
Very good. All right, moving ahead. Any future agenda items? Anything you'd like to see discussed in addition to the things we've kind of talked about already that we know are going to be on the March meeting?
I think at the March meeting, it might be nice to just get a list of all the initiatives that are being worked on or discussed. You know, maybe they're not on the regular agendas, but you know, maybe the separate committees are working on them, or it's something that we've tabled for a couple months for whatever reason. Not that we need to discuss them at that meeting, but just if we all have a list of it to make sure we know everything that has kind of been in consideration for a while.
I think a good place to start would be on the City of De Pere website and just go to the Sustainability Commission page. There's a listing of quite a few things there, but I don't know how much detail we can add in between now and then. But if based on that list, if there's something you'd like to see more on, we can. Like I said, I'm going to go back through some of my old meeting minutes, and I'll try to flesh out some of the programs that I know about, things that haven't been discussed in the last couple of months here.
Just to forewarn the commission, I'll probably have this evaluation item last on the March commission meeting. We do have finance committee right after us, so if we run up against their time, because I see this item may be going along as we discuss it, we will eventually have to cut off and then continue discussion. So like the RFP, if that's on the agenda, I'm going to put everything that's actionable first, and then we'll have this big discussion item at the end that will potentially continue.
And Chase, maybe try to limit the other agenda items so that we do have time at the end to talk about the ordinance and kind of lining up. That makes sense to me.
Absolutely.
I kind of want to say hi to Anna or pick out a little bit. She's been listening very patiently. So we're getting ready to wrap things up here. Anything, Anna, that we should be thinking about or that we're missing out on? Are you still with us?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. Everything was very like a lot of information came out of today, and like a lot of new things that we haven't talked about before, which were good. Like especially like the NFL draft. I think that's like a big thing that's gonna affect the community like greatly. So It's a good thing to talk about.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Last call for agenda items? And not hearing anybody, I would make a motion to adjourn the meeting. I would need a second.
I second.
And a second. Thank you. Betty, is this also a roll call, or could we just? Yeah.
No, I think we can adjourn on
Voice vote.
a voice vote, sure.
All right. All those in favor of adjourn, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye. Thanks very much, everybody. And the meeting is adjourned. Thanks for your time.